Hey now everyone, welcome to a special episode 400 of the Movie Mavericks podcast. I'm Trevor Anderson. Send you over to Jason Rugard. He's got a rundown. He's going to tell us what the hell's going on.
Well, congratulations, my man. We made it to episode 400.
We're well past 400, let's be honest.
I was thinking about that too. I mean, we've done a bunch of retrospectives. We had an animated critics version of this where you could see us in animation form before we even did this. So with lost episodes that never made it to air. Do you think we're around 550?
I mean, I don't know. That might be on the outside.
500?
Like more like, I don't know. So I don't think we've done 100 extra episodes. We're at maybe like 450.
Wow, that's still a lot of episodes.
Because we've done quite a few. I mean, we've only lost a handful of episodes, right?
Right, but we did have the animated critics that ran for a good year and a half before we did this version.
I don't really remember how many of those there were. You're right. We're doing those weekly, but I don't know.
I think there's about 30 of those or so.
Well, then if there's 30 of those, then we're probably, closer to 500 then. Because we do have like at least 30 or so retros.
Easily. And a handful of episodes that never made it to air or we bungled the
there you go.
Recording.
So 480. 490, 480. I'm not willing to go over 500 yet.
I'll take that as well. I'll take the odds on that. If you're just joining us and you haven't been a long-time listener of the show, we know that a lot of you have just joined in the last couple of years. You may not know the history of this podcast, and that is that when Trevor and I have known each other now for going on 23, 24 years now, quarter of a century.
What was it? 2003,
2002, 2003, roughly.
I think it was 2003.
Okay, and so 21 years, and it's crazy. But we started this website and podcast in the early days of podcasting. Looking back on it in 2010, this version of the podcast became a thing in around April of 2011, and we've stayed with this format roughly since then, with a few tweaks here and there.
It's the easiest to do.
Over the years, we had a box office derby that we did. We had a box office DeLorean where we looked back on things. We've had a lot of different segments over the years and starts and stops, but we never abandoned ship.
Well, it feels like some of that stuff wouldn't really work. A box office DeLorean just wouldn't work today. Who wants to look back at the old box office?
It's just not fun.
It just doesn't seem like anyone cares so much. I mean, maybe you could talk about the movies from those years, but looking at the box office, I don't know. Are there any real super box office fanatics anymore, especially after 2020?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there are, because everything is so depressed. And even just last weekend, you look at the numbers, and we're in the middle of July, and no matter how they spin it, it's very down. And we'll talk about some hits, some misses of the summer, and on this show, as well as looking back at, we'll have some fun here. So we're going to talk about, movie-wise, we're going to talk about Beverly Hills Cop 4, a.k.a. Axel F. We are going to talk about Bad Boys for Life, a.k.a. Bad Boys 4. And we are going to talk about Horizon, by Kevin Costner.
We're going to talk about Ride or Die.
That's what it's called, Ride or Die. I said this to you off
For Life,
air.
that's the third one, right? I think that's the third one. The one before this was called Bad Boys
You're right.
for Life.
Yeah. I did it again because I told you off air, why wasn't this one titled For Life? They really fucked up with the 4. They could have worked that into this.
Yeah.
They jumped the gun. Yes, you're right. Bad Boys Ride or Die, a.k.a. Bad Boys 4. First, a treat for you guys. We're going to go back to episode 1, and Trevor and I are going to listen to this with you. Our first attempt at podcasting on what is known as Talk Shoe, where we could have live call. Do we ever get any live people?
Yeah. Remember we had a couple of people call in. We had a couple. So I don't know why we kept doing it, because it was never that whole thing never really worked. But
this was from what I remember, or how I think about it, this was the days of our Wayne's World days, in the garage.
It was, yeah.
Trying to figure out how public access works and if we could get on air. Let's go back and listen to Trevor and I's intro for the first episode in this podcast series. This is April of 2011.
Talk shoe. Recorded live.
Wow.
All right. After some technical difficulties, we're online.
Apparently. I mean, I had to call with my cell phone. This is strange. there's no way to do this just from the phone or from the computer?
Apparently not.
What's going on? It's the first time we've ever done this.
Let's regroup here and go ahead and start the show. All right, are you still there?
Where am I? I'm lost.
All right, we want to welcome everyone to
You're
the
just gonna
inaugural, obviously, podcast of the Movie Mavericks.
Oh, fuck it.
Thank you for joining us. We had some technical difficulties
we don't know where
there starting
Trevor
off the
is.
show, a few minutes behind schedule. Thank you for hanging out with us. And we'll be here today talking movies. I'm Jay, here with T. How you doing, T?
Oh, God, this is back when we used to call it T and J.
Right.
Yep.
A little difficulties here.
Yeah, we're new to this whole system, so like I said, apologize to any sort of bumps we may hit in this inaugural episode. But
Nobody's listening. Don't worry
Trevor and I
about it.
here have been running MovieMavericks.com, which is the podcast of, for over a year now, and this is our first time doing a weekly show live. So feel free to call us, add your comments, or just sit back and listen to us talk movies.
All right. Oh, wow.
Well, that was, as you say, back when we were going by T and J, which was I guess, our monikers for the animated critics, right?
Yeah, the animated thing.
Well, in going back and looking at this, first of all, I mean,
why are we on our phones?
because I don't think we had microphones weren't as readily available. This was in the early days of the podcast world too.
They were readily available.
The Yetis were.
It sounds like something happened. Oh, we didn't have it yet. I don't know. I mean, yeah, for sure. They had microphones.
It sounds like I'm talking to you on a walkie-talkie.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We're on our phones. It's like, what's going on? Wow. All right. Cool.
Oh, fuck. Well, as you can see, we had a rough start, and we rebounded quickly. In doing the look back on this, I do know that we dropped the T versus J by, I think, around episode 5 or 6. We were calling each other by our regular
Thank God.
names.
I was worried that I was worried you were about to say by episode 100. I was like, oh, Jesus.
No, we were at government names by the 5th one in, I think. Because, like I said, the animated version of this, Trevor was animating our voices with running video behind it, and really the early days of YouTube, looking back on it. And they're still up there if you want to look at. Type in animated critics, you can check them out, and it's basically that. It's just our podcast animated. Yeah, it was a huge workload for you to do week in, week out. Do you recall doing that?
Yeah, it was too much work. That's why I say this is just easier. Just record audio, put it out. Whoever listens. I mean, YouTube's actually podcasting. The entire internet is a different game than it was when we started. We've been through. This would be the second downturn I think that we've been through.
Yeah, and not only that, how many different? I mean, we started with TalkShoe, and then Podbean. We really Stitcher was when we started this.
Well, we're still on Stitcher. That's just like
there was very few outlets even for the podcast. I mean, Pandora was one of them. Stitcher was another.
Was still and always the biggest.
Right, but there were not that many podcasts when we started, and now there's got to be literally 5 million podcasts out there. I think was the last number.
It's that's way more cutthroat than it used to be. But the internet in general, it got really bad. I say a couple years after we started. Then it got a lot better for quite some time, and then the last couple of years have been pretty bad. So
yeah, it's a rough game out there. But we always want to thank our loyal listeners. We want to give a shout out to a couple people out there that have been longtime listeners of the show. Shout out to my best friend Ian Monat, who's not only been a listener since episode 1. But is also a very talented musician, and he actually did our intro music for the initial animated critics back in 2010. So much thanks to you for listening all these years, as well as our man Joe Giuliano out there in the East Coast has been with us. He's
been on some episodes.
He's been our guest. He's been I think from the beginning.
Telling him we're gonna have him on again, but we can never get whenever we get lined up in enough time,
With the East Coast, West Coast coordinates, your work schedule, my work schedule, I know that man's
he's
a
a busy
hard worker
guy,
too.
so-
Yeah, exactly. So if you're hearing this, Joe, special shout out to you for being the longtime fan and just an all-around movie fanatic like us. So kudos to you and well wishes to you. All right, let's go back and listen to another clip. And this clip is us discussing big-time actors taking on roles in franchises. This is right when Dwayne Johnson jumped in to be part of the ensemble in the Fast Five. I want you to hear this as well.
Okay.
All right.
These actors realize the value of being together, so they're not all trying to get top dollar. They'll take a small pay cut to be an ensemble movie because it actually helps their career, more so than a headlining gig would.
I would agree.
What?
I agree. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our first show for the day.
Well, a couple speed bumps in there, but I think we did a good job here discussing our topics for the week. And I want to thank anyone that's listening and anyone that wrote into us. Thank you for your questions there. A couple of you had questions that hopefully we answered to the best of our ability. And what can you say about the next week? Anything you're looking forward to for next show?
Yeah, well, I'm interested in discussing Thor, next week, and
Thor.
really seeing how that goes, and with that, we can probably better judge what the rest of the summer is going to be like. So that'll be really interesting to get past that first initial hump.
Yeah, tomorrow or next weekend, even though they said this was the first official weekend of the box office, historically it starts the first weekend of May, so the summer season has begun, and Movie Mavericks will be here with you all summer, and we'll be talking movies, and in the upcoming weeks here, we will be giving you...
And we lose our audio. Pause it after that. We lose our fucking audio.
Is that what happened?
Yes, we couldn't even get a proper closeout because we lost our fucking audio feed halfway through on the first episode. So
Done.
that was the bookends of our first episode there.
Okay.
So
That was a rough. I remember that not being a very fun episode.
yeah, I think losing my virginity went smoother than our first episode.
I think we should have deleted that. We should have deleted it and started over after we even had some clue of what we were doing.
In fact, I suggested going back and removing these from the internet at one point, and you forbade me from doing this.
Well, yeah, because they're already there. You can't delete stuff after the fact.
That's true. And this just goes to show you that we have no sense of pride or shame because
No, that's a weenie move, man. We ain't weenies over here.
Yeah, exactly. This podcast, we own our shit. We stand on business. So moving on. That's the first episode there, and now I have a collection of a couple different clips that are from episodes, I think between 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So these are roughly some assemblages of things that we discussed and some things that we were precedent on. And I want you to hear this next clip where we were talking about the low box office opening for the movie Hoodwinked. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember what company released that movie?
It was a Weinstein Company.
Okay, so let's listen to this next clip.
That was the beginning of the Blockbuster exclusive stuff, was right in around this era.
Which was when they came to... this was still a theatrical release, a very poorly opening
This
one.
was the Weinstein Company. This was after the Miramax fallout.
Yep.
And this was the Weinstein Company, yeah.
And so
they
this
made
is...
that deal with Blockbuster to exclusive movies.
All right, let's listen to this clip now.
But it is the Weinsteins. They don't know what the hell they're doing anyways. Like I say, I don't know. They probably used up all the money and good graces that they got from the King's Speech at this point.
They have to be going through all that money that they blew on the King's Speech. Especially their slate of films coming up is none the more impressive with the sequel to Piranha and things like that. They're throwing money on bad investments, but they've been known to do that throughout the years as well, and then get bailed out when they get an Oscar winner.
We used the term bailed out, which was eerily precedent. So it's funny that even back then the writing was on the wall that shit was, I mean, the thing was falling apart. The man's life was falling apart back as early as 2011 when I hear that. And you knew at that time because you had seen that Blockbuster exclusive. I mean, you weren't that many years removed from working in a Blockbuster at this point, maybe 5 years removed. So you were there when that transition was happening too, right? When they were putting all
I worked there when this happened. I was working at Blockbuster when this happened. Yeah.
I thought that was a different time period. Shit, man, I'm in the Matrix 100%. Right now. So you saw when this was happening, and they were flooding with all the product. I remember when Derailed came out. That was like one of their bigger hits outside of the King's Speech, and that was a shelf. No, not the one with Van Damme. This is the one with exactly
the good one. Yeah.
No, that's one of Van Damme's worst films, by the way. And the Derailed with Clive Owen and Jennifer Aniston, which actually isn't a bad movie, but they papered
but in fact he rails her instead of derailing her, so
which
is kind of weird.
False advertising, if you ask me. And that thing was one of the first ones. Do you remember that movie Dougal?
Yeah,
the Kevin Smith
voiced shit.
Yeah.
That
was. I mean, there was a lot of ones like. There's a collection of kids movies that I've seen trailers for and have never seen. That I always go, "What the fuck happened to that movie?" Remember The Wildlife?
Yeah, but that wasn't a Weinstein one.
No, I'm just saying this is like random kids movies, like Over the Edge or Over the Hedge.
Yeah, that was a DreamWorks movie.
Oh, was it? That was a bigger one.
Sure.
Okay, that's just. But
that one's okay. Yeah, I mean, there was a slew of them right here in the mid to late 2000s. Yeah, there was a bunch.
Brother Bear. I mean, fuck.
Yeah, that was a Disney movie.
You see what I'm saying? I just sometimes think back on this and go, did I dream these up?
That was 2D, I think. That one.
Oh well, shit. That wasn't even in the modern era.
Animated, so I don't even know. Well, I think that was 2000s. Was it not, or was it 90s? I don't even know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how'd you know all that stuff about Weinstein? Talk about all that shit. That sounds like a different. I don't even have that knowledge bestowed on me anymore. You know, like when we sit there and talk about Weinstein. Oh yeah, well they're known to do that, spend this money, and then they do this, and they're getting bailed out again. And bailed out who by who? What's going on?
Who knows? We had inside information that we didn't even know of back then. We just sound so much more youthful. I'm just listening to this and just remembering.
It just sounds like we know, like there's more going on, right? Like today, it's like, well, what's happening to the world of movies today? It's like, I don't know, somebody's, virtue signaling. Someone's saying they don't like modern movies. Someone's complaining about the fans. It's like the same shit.
Yeah.
Nothing interesting
about the theatrical experience going away.
It's nothing interesting at all.
No. At least this was some interesting shit. But we didn't know what was in store for us in the years ahead with the Weinsteins. And we were already harping on them. And like I said, the empire was already cracking.
I never got an invite up to the hotel room, so of course I never knew.
Well, I think if you had dyed your hair, maybe, I think you might have got a chance.
Okay.
All right, what's this? This next clip is actually going to be somewhat of a mystery to me. I can't recall what this next clip is going to be about.
I guess we'll find out.
In true Movie Mavericks fashion, we are very prepared. All right, let's see what this one is. Let's go ahead.
Let's transition over here to talking about our boy, the Austrian Oak, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and his comeback. What can you tell our listeners about the big man's comeback?
Well, I don't know. This is interesting to me because I think he's messing up here with both these movies that he's doing. The new Terminator, obviously, I'm not sure how it would possibly work him into that, and I can't see that going well at all because there's no, Terminator 3. Sure, you could buy it. He was still pretty bulky then, but now he's old. The Terminator doesn't age, so I don't see how that's going to work. The second thing is this other movie he's doing, where he plays a small town sheriff, and you got the guy escapes, from jail or whatever, and he's trying to get to Mexico, and he's got to go through Schwarzenegger's town here, and he's got to rally his troops to stop this guy. And it just, to me, it sounds like Collateral Damage 2 almost in a way, which is just the kind of movies that ended his career.
Well, I was right and wrong about all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just going to say, I got to give you credit because you were absolutely right about Terminator Genesis. This isn't even.
Well, I was right about the second one too, but. Well, actually,
I'm right
about both of those movies being bad career choices.
But The Last Stand is a mini classic.
I love The Last Stand. I don't
heart.
actually mind what they did with the Terminator Genesis. I thought it was okay. But it was the beginning, of course, and this was the era. It was the beginning of the old man era for everything. Old man, and we had Old Man Logan coming up pretty soon after this. It just paved the way for old man everything, Expendables. I don't know. Just this era of action turned out to be a little, not enough of a throwback and more of a like where we're all old now. Like, okay.
What I said, I'm sure on air back then, although I didn't hear it on these clips, but my sentiment is that these are movies that they would have turned down in their prime because they were trying to get away from, and then they came back to when they were too old to make it really work. Like Escape Plan, let's be honest, with him and Stallone. That would have been fantastic in 1993. But when we got it in 2013, it was still enjoyable to me as a fan of the two men, but it would have been a massive phenomenon if they had done it in the right time.
Yeah, I know. It was too late, right? The fans were already basically gone. I had just wished that I don't know what the right career choice would have actually been for either of those guys. They both got bumps and they both got, multiple tries at a comeback. Actually, I think they would still be given tries to come back, both of them. But I don't know. I mean, Schwarzenegger didn't have anything to lean back on. Stallone had Rocky and Rambo at least. And, well, I guess he had Terminator. God.
Well, if you think about it, at the time that we're recording this in 2011, all we have is the Expendables 1 for Stallone. He hasn't done the Creed series yet. He hasn't done Bullet to the Head, which you and I both love. He done a few. He done Rambo choices. Though, and that was fucking fantastic. But that was
great too.
I thought once we got Rocky Balboa and we got Rambo, that was going to be that. And I thought Terminator was going to have Schwarzenegger was going to have a lot of success coming out of Office because I thought we for sure would have got a new Conan, that King Conan script from Milius.
No, we got things like Maggie and
Sabotage.
Just things that were just like, all right. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just messing around at this point.
Well, it's like Fubar. Do you enjoy that show?
It sucks. I don't even watch it. I've watched 3 episodes and I was done.
And you're still, a Schwarzenegger diehard. So it's kind of crazy because compared to the two, I finished Tulsa King and I didn't get past episode 3 of Fubar.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, Tulsa King's a better show. It's not like I have anything against Schwarzenegger. And Stallone's had, I think, his mistakes as well.
Obviously, yeah.
I mean, in the modern era.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, both these guys tanked. Their careers tanked earlier, but they had a bit of a comeback and they tanked again. It's like John Travolta. They come and they go, and sometimes the coming's better, and sometimes you're just glad to see them not there anymore.
Well, Nicolas Cage is having a minor resurgence right now with Long Legs.
He's fine. He's always hanging out in the corner, doing something. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
He's the voyeur.
He's watching. He's always there. He's always around,
studying
popping
character
in every once in a while. He's always been like that.
What a weird fuck. I love that guy. I think we have one last clip, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so this next clip is us talking about Fast 5 had just been released to record-breaking box office numbers, leading into the resurgence of that franchise. And we were talking here about Justin Lin and how much further could he go with the franchise. We didn't know he would make 4 more of these things before retiring, I think, with Fast 9. But this is us discussing the career of Justin Lin up to that point and what he had done for the franchise.
The opening action sequence in Part 4, that is a very crisply edited, shot, choreographed sequence that it really hits home visually, and I think it's because those things are meticulously storyboarded out.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. He's also, this is his 3rd film doing this, so that's not saying anything back, because really in the 3rd installment in the series, he did a great job. So, but that was a much smaller movie. I think him, working that out on a much smaller movie almost made, when he got the chance to redo it, really, with a larger budget and with bigger actors, it made it much better. Like, he was more prepared to do these last 2 ones, having done that 3rd one.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you on that. He must be sick of seeing cars racing around at this point. I mean, the guy has put a camera in every orifice of a car that you can imagine, and I mean, he arguably is done the best with the series.
And I still feel the same way. I mean, I don't think... Do you find, when you're listening to this again, that you recall these sentiments and that you stand behind them, or that you are of a different mind when you hear this kind of stuff? Like, it sounds like somebody else's thoughts.
It sounds like... It just sounds of its time. Like, I don't think about stuff like this anymore. honestly, like Justin Lin, like that's a different way of thinking about filmmaking. I just don't think of filmmaking that way anymore. It's just not as interesting. The way people make movies, the way people talk about movies, I think, is what really does it. And I'm not just talking about people. I mean, people who make movies. The way they talk about movies is horrible.
Yeah, it's
and uninteresting and untechnical, and it's just opinions, and it's just nonsense. And I don't give a shit about it. You know, film used to be about techniques and not only just emotions, you know, but how to get those emotions on screen and what emotions a movie brought to you and stuff. And it's just not like that anymore. Instead, the focus is on like Scorsese saying Marvel movies are, you know, no good, even though that's not really what he said. But that's what everyone's going to spin on it, and that's what movies are about now. It's like, you know, the fan bases are, everyone's up into their own little base, and if you belong, well, you got to find out where you belong, and then you got to fight with everybody about, I don't know, nothing. The movies are, the culture's dead, is the way I feel about it, and I think that shows in the, you know, theatrical take homes, you know, from the box office.
Well, as nice as it is to be connected to other film lovers and to see opinion and things like that, it was in a way funner when I thought that I was the only person that liked Knockoff, the Van Damme film, and I felt like it was like a special bond between me and that film, and I didn't know there was a whole subsection of YouTube that has documentaries devoted to it and things like that. So it does take away the personal connection I felt with some of these things. You know, I didn't think Once Bitten had an audience. I thought I stumbled upon that late night on HBO, and nobody else really had ever known about these movies. So it's cool and it's not, but nobody. I just don't think that there's the connection.
Do you define
to
yourself
films.
that way though? I mean, that's the problem that I would have with talking with people who you discover this other audience. This other audience defines themselves by these movies.
No,
and I would never define myself by movies like that. Like, these are my favorite movies. This is my list. This is my stuff. This is my. It's like, okay, I don't care that much. Just talk about movies. Like, why? Like, why do you have to define yourself by the movies that you watch? It's so weird.
Well, also, as a movie guy, and you tell people we have a movie podcast, this and that, I'm sure you get this too. The first question somebody will ask is, well, what's your favorite movies? And that is such an impossible question for somebody who's seen a lot of movies, because over the years,
I don't even know what the question means.
My top 15 or 20, you want to call it, could morph. I mean, you have your cores in there, you know, your Rockies and your Top Gun. And
is it rewatchability? Is it movies that you enjoy? Or is it movies that you think are technically great? Like, what does that mean? What's your favorite movie?
A beautiful experience viewing with an audience, like something about Mary, you know, is it?
Oh, yeah. The movies I've seen the most are not the movies that I think are technically the best movies ever made.
It reminds me of when they ask an actor or actress what their favorite movie of theirs is, and they say, you know, just it might be I like that movie because of the time I had on the production, not necessarily
the finished product. Citizen Kane, right?
Yeah, right, or The Godfather.
remember when there was a time when Citizen Kane was always the answer to that fucking question?
Yeah. Or Casablanca, or The Godfather.
There you go, or The Godfather, yeah.
And if you said anything else than that,
oh my God,
we were laughed out of film school.
That was the 90s for sure.
The 90s, that was our film school experience. Remember when I got in trouble for talking about Michael Bay and Armageddon in class? And, you know, I
got laughed at for showing Luc Besson.
And both of these filmmakers are still working today, and a lot of the filmmakers that our classmates were drooling over aren't even in the industry, have washed out. You know, with the guy who did Brown Bunny and the guy who did The Girl with the Pearl Earring.
Vincent Gallo.
I mean, I like a lot. There's a lot of
Buffalo 66 is fucking a great indie film, though.
What was the Harmony Korine? They were obsessing over him.
Yeah,
there was a lot of that. And it was at the time the It movies were American Psycho, Eternal Sunshine. I mean, these were the esoteric films of that era.
Well, they were fake indie movies.
Donnie Darko, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you said you understood it, then, you know, you were in a niche group. But if I could pull the same thing out of fucking Fight Club that you're pulling out of a Nicholas Roeg film, then what's the difference? You know, Fincher's Fincher, and, you know, Fincher became this, and at the time he wasn't. And it's funny because I remember Dave Schwartz, one of our instructors, arguing with me about Fight Club. And while I've cooled on it over the years in terms of like my love for that movie, I actually think it's kind of depressing now. I do think I still was right about.
It was depressing back then, but I could stand more depressing things when I was younger. It's weird, but now I find a little bit more of a turnoff. Although something like The Whale, sometimes the depressing stuff can be really amazing. Still today, but they don't make a lot of depressing stuff. To be honest with you, they don't.
No, it's pretty cookie cutter. Unless it's
they don't make a lot of real movies, and by real movies I mean about people just being people. We don't get that in the horror movies. We don't get that in any of the action movies either. I mean, Bad Boys is going to be a good example, and Beverly Hills Cop of me being turned into a liar. But most of the time, we don't get those types of movies. They don't do that well, right? We certainly don't get a Horizon. What you get is like, Gladiator II. But it's not like Gladiator.
Which we'll talk about
ridiculous,
at the end of the show there. But, I mean, let's jump into our first review here. That was a nice look back. And would you want to look back at some further episodes in the next oncoming show? Do you want to do some clips like this?
Yeah. Yeah, we could do more clips.
All right,
I think,
guys.
I'll try to look. Maybe I'll look for some clips too. I'll try to find something.
All right, and if you guys are out there and comment on our Facebook page, YouTube, whatever it may be, wherever you're listening to this, and let us know if you're enjoying the clips as much as we did, because it was fun to go back and listen to those early days. But let's talk about the movies of today, and the hottest movie released right now, I'd say, is Axel F. Beverly Hills Cop 4. Oh. Jerry Bruckheimer produced. This was riding on the heels of Maverick, I feel like, with the name and the nostalgia love here. And there's a lot to like in this movie but everything I liked about this movie was just because it was reminding me of past Beverly Hills Cops, but not in the way that Maverick did, where it was giving me something new while showing me something old. I felt like this was just trying to appease my nostalgia.
Well, Maverick didn't do what this movie did, right? I mean, it kind of did, but it didn't outright tell you, right? Maverick was obviously the old guy coming in to a younger world, right? And they did that with this here, where he, where is he from? Chicago?
No, Detroit.
Detroit. No. Is he?
Yeah, he's a Detroit cop to Beverly Hills. That's his Lions jacket the whole time.
Somebody said, I don't know why I thought Chicago. But basically they turned Detroit into the 90s, right? And Beverly Hills becomes modern day. And so they take him out of Detroit and put him in Beverly Hills, and they just they kind of make fun of him. I think the nice thing about this movie, though, is that when they do talk shit to him, like specifically there's a moment where the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character, chides him and tells me, this isn't, it's not like that anymore. You can't do this shit. He doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't really do anything to Axel. He doesn't really care. He is Axel all the time, even though the movie is trying to tell him, you're too old. People don't act like that anymore.
Well, what this movie does that Maverick didn't do is that Maverick made the relationship between Miles Teller and Tom Cruise in that film. He's not a bad father. He's a distant friend and who did something, parental that the kid views as fucked up. But just like in Die Hard 5 and Die Hard 4, where they made John McClane a piece of shit father, guess what they did to Axel F?
Yeah, I think there's a huge miss here. Why is it it should have been his son, and it shouldn't have been, the reason for him being a bad father shouldn't have just been that the kid just doesn't like him. That's the whole reason. I didn't like him. I told him to get the hell out of my life, and then he did. And it's like, well, he's not a bad father. You're a horrible fucking daughter. You're terrible. Like, he sounds like he was very involved in your life.
Well, they write themselves out of that problem.
And you acted like that was, but that, I know they do, but that was her whole issue. He was basically too involved and too controlling. Okay, so he was controlling. So you just write him off? You're just done with him?
His character even says that. Well, you never reached out to me, too. And she says, haven't you been to therapy? The child is always the child. The father is always the father. And I thought, wow, that's just a weak way to resolve that little argument in writing. Just could you shut that right down? That's that point to me, I was totally, and the second we meet Kevin Bacon, I mean, is there any sort of
I know
that
was a problem.
We're just
movie,
waiting
right?
for the inevitable showdown, and come on here. Kevin Bacon picked up a paycheck. He's serviceable in the film, but his character is so badly written. And this is Will Beall, who also had a hand in writing Bad Boys 4, Ride or Die, and that I think is, it's no marvel of writing, but at least it's better than
way better.
This thing, because
it's way better than this.
After all the starts and stops that we talked about on the last podcast that we did, which is a retro for Beverly Hills Cop 3, this is what they finally settled on. This is the kind of thing that Tom Cruise didn't want Top Gun 2 to be.
This is poorly written, right? It starts off great. The action sequences, I think, are the best part of this whole movie.
For sure. And it's the music and all that.
Work great.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that by the time you get to that helicopter sequence at the end, I no longer give a shit.
Exactly.
Because this movie is so boring before that. I mean, they totally screwed up. They have Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it. Why is he not in the fucking movie? He's not. Right? He's barely in the damn
Judge
movie.
Reinhold's barely in the movie.
They're barely, everyone's barely in the movie. But they're old as fuck, so I don't give a shit. Like... They're super. They look terrible. Everyone looks horrible except for Eddie Murphy. So explain that one to me. And isn't there a line in this where he says, I've been a cop for 30 years? 30?
I know. I did the math too, and I thought that was weird too, yeah.
Really? 30 years? It's because it's fucking 40 at least, bro.
It's exactly 40, because 84 was when the first one came out. I saw that too. I thought, man, didn't they? Because they make that little snide remark about your file here, 84, 87, and then that 94 one we won't talk about. And I thought, what? You're barely better than that 94 one.
I can't stand the fucking fan bullshit. I do not want to hear these, like the beginning of this movie, which is basically like, can you believe we're in a Beverly Hills Cop movie? I love Axel. Axel's my favorite cop ever. Really? He's a live person. You're in the movie. This isn't. No, you're not a fucking fan. You're not watching the movie. You're in the fucking movie. You don't sit there and say how much you love this guy. Right. Why would you do that? Who would do that? You can't have your fan in the fucking movie. Like, this felt like a fake movie to me through a lot of it. Well, that reason. And then the Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they get there and he does it again. They're like, look, have you seen your file? Look at all these amazing things you've done. It's like, what? Who cares?
It's to me, this is what I thought a Lethal Weapon 5 would end up like if they did it. Honestly, this is what my fear would have been for all those years, is to end up with something that feels cheap. As much as
it feels a little Last Action Hero-y, to be honest with you.
It just, to me, it like feels cheap. I mean, in a weird way.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It feels.
It's like a fake movie,
like an afterthought, like something. This, once again, this is what you waited 30 years to make.
Oh, horrible writing. Why is Paul Reiser in this? I mean, I know Netflix has him on retainer, but he shows up and he's like, what I'm saying is you should see your daughter. This is all I'm saying. You should see your daughter. You should see your daughter. Oh, I wonder where this fucking movie's going to go.
Well, John Ashton, they bring back to just scream at Axel for 4 scenes.
I know.
There's no chemistry there. Like, they're acting like they... And then let's talk about one of the bigger letdowns is Bronson Pinchot as Serge, whose scene is nothing. Honestly, he does nothing in the sequence where they're in the house. It's the girl from I forget her name, but she was on Saturday Night Live for years as the ditzy real estate agent who's carrying that scene. And I will say at least that Eddie Murphy seems a little bit more relaxed and wanting to please, as opposed to last time we saw him in Part 3, where he seemed.
I think he's great in this.
I
think this movie failed Eddie Murphy.
100%. I think this is his most comedic performance I've seen in years. I mean, much better than Coming to America or Candy Cane Lane.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to America 2, I should say.
This movie is written like dog shit. This is the exact problem with Netflix-made movies. Is the problem with movies made in Hollywood. It's a horrible fucking movie. And if I had read the script, I would tell everyone, this is dog shit.
And now they're talking about Part 5, and I don't understand where this goes with Part 5.
I'm tired of this. Like, I don't want to just like sling myself through the fucking mud when I watch any movie, and everyone just goes, "Oh, it was great. I watched it." Did you watch it? Actually, the reviews on this have been, it was okay.
Yeah, because people are scrolling through their phones as it's playing in front of their fucking face. It's different than watching it.
But even people who liked it, or most people who have good things to say about it, come off as saying it's okay. Well, it was fine to watch.
Look, it's a 2-star movie, and it's better than Part 3, and it's nowhere near the first 2. That's the best way I'm going to describe this movie. Let's talk about Bad Boys 4. I want to talk about Bad Boys 4. We haven't talked about this yet.
Please.
This has been a massive hit. This answered the question for me, though, if I could get over the Will Smith incident. And apparently I can very quickly, because it turned that way with the trailer, and within the first few minutes of this movie, I was back very easily into wanting to like these two. I just love these guys I grew up. The first one came out when I was 16, and I've been watching these movies, and you and I are huge fans of Part 2. Just fucking love that thing. See, I mean, I've dissected that
the first
movie.
one and the second one. This is a lot like the Blade series, you know? First one's great, but the second one, holy shit.
Right. The second one is, I think one critic once described it as the most expensive Miami Vice episode ever, and in a lot of ways it is.
It is a beautiful looking movie. Some of the gunfights in that movie are just incredible. And of course, that's why these ones have those weird, well, it's due to Michael Bay, obviously. They have the weird camera angles and the fun, like flying around during action sequences and stuff. And this one still has that, and it still works.
Yeah, I thought that surprisingly the comedy in this one works. I didn't know where they were going in the initial stages with Martin's character suffering a heart attack and getting, I thought this is very USA, I'm going to be calm and I'm not going to let anything bother me, kind of like they did in Part 2. And I thought that was a touch where they were revisiting this. But where this movie really excelled was in the Reggie character and bringing him along. But what's happening is...
Yeah, there was the one scene that was really good.
Because but
I didn't like the story overall.
No, the story overall, when they're trying to... there's a lot of loose ends because now they got the son character. They're having a Fast and Furious problem.
They shouldn't have killed off...
Captain Howard, Joey Pants.
Yeah, that I think was a bad move. They should have just made this... I don't know. When they did that, it felt like now we're just making a movie to make a movie, and now we're trying to what can we do? We can kill this guy. Oh, that sounds good. Why don't you just make a movie about these guys have to go out and stop somebody again? Just make it about nothing, but it's mostly going to be about them and how they go about it and their family and stuff. It could be a lot of the same movie, and you wouldn't have to kill off a character like that. It wouldn't have to be some weird. It just feels twisted and I don't know, like it's written in such a way as that. I don't know how to explain it. It's I don't know. It's a bad idea.
They're reverse engineering it because they wrote themselves into a hole with the villain of the son from the last one being the ultimate badass, and now
I didn't like bringing him in this either. It didn't make any sense.
I thought he was the weakest part of the story.
They should have left him out of this movie, left him out of the franchise. He's done, and gone on to do something else. Like when you look at actually, I mean, we're getting well into this series at this point. We're gonna need to pivot to a James Bond. We're going to need a villain, like a real villain, like what Fast 10 did, right? Which I would say would be even too late for what Fast 10 did, because it's the thing that those Mission Impossible movies have. It's the things that James Bond movies had. We need to start focusing on really good villains.
That makes the movie. I mean, the hero can only do so much. The villain is what distinguishes each entry, typically. And that's what Fast 10 had in spades. But where this movie lost me was too many characters and getting rid of all of basically the side characters from the last one. The Alexander Ludwig and Vanessa Hudgenson
they're in this.
They very minorly for how much they built up that young team in the last one. I mean, I thought they'd have...
I know they didn't use them very much,
no.
But they were more for a comedic effect in this.
Which I don't mind because these are action comedies, but I mean, look, it's a good fourth entry. Not on par of something like Lethal Weapon 4 for me, which I think is a fantastic fourth entry for this kind of stuff. But it's good enough, and I understand why it's a hit because at least it's, a shoot-'em-up action comedy. I'm glad that it's not just a superhero movie out there dominating or a kid's movie or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'd like to see real action movies about real people doing just real people things. And although obviously it's over the top, they're doing more than what any real person could ever do. And it is a superhero movie to some regard in that sense, but they don't have superpowers. They're not they're not presented in that way. They're presented as normal human beings. And I mean, Martin Lawrence is a fat little guy at this point. He's not really, and they don't, it's not as if they're out there doing a bunch of fighting and stuff. A lot of it's gunplay. So it works out. It makes sense. It's a nice action movie. I wish we could get back to making more movies like this where it's just people doing things. I don't mind the big comic book movies, but can we get some balance? Be nice.
I'm just happy to see it's grossing what it's grossing. Although I don't think a Part 5 is warranted. I really don't. I know it's inevitable with the grosses on this, but I just unless you're building a bigger world and why to give me 5 more, I don't see where we go with this. Just end it here on this good note, and it's a quadrilogy. They're all fairly solid entries.
Well, they could do more.
Leave it.
I mean,
they could, and then
there's nothing else to do.
Will. Yeah, Will Smith needs this too because this has really reinstated him, and clearly audiences around the world are willing to forgive.
But you're going to have a hard time trying to make an original action movie or original anything movie at this point and have it play well in the theaters, right? There has to be some sort of an event thing. Bad Boys is a pretty solid name. I mean, otherwise you're looking at like Beekeeper, level numbers. Which, I mean, if Will Smith was in another action movie that wasn't Bad Boys, I don't think it carries as much weight.
Well, let's talk about Horizons. Kevin Costner's Western. This is going to be part 1 of 4, and I think you and I are amongst some of the only people in America that went and saw this movie.
There's tons of people that have seen it, and they love it.
It's $25 million gross currently as we record this. This is a financial failure. I can see why it's struggling at the box office. I mean,
it's 3 hours.
It's
long.
3 hours long.
It's a Western.
Yep. It's just. I mean, the older audience did not come out. The advertising.
You want to hear? You want to hear what's weird?
Go ahead.
It's 185.
No shit.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, you saw it. So.
I don't remember it being not fully widescreen.
Well, that is fully wide.
Wait, I thought 2.4. I thought wait a minute. I thought
fully widescreen.
2.4 was our anamorphic, the widest we can get.
Well, right. Well, there's no anamorphic anymore. It's all flat. So it's just they're both the same width basically. You just mat the top and bottom, and then you can get.
Okay, so we're getting a wider.
But
screen,
most movies
or top and bottom.
Most movies do that because they need to differentiate themselves. It's a gimmick, which is widescreen's a gimmick to begin with, right? To get away from television. But television's 16:9. So it's what 178. These movies are 185. They don't like to do that anymore. So everything's. If you haven't noticed, most movies are fucking scope at this point, which is weird and unnecessary. I just feels weird. Like this movie being 185 felt bigger to me because I've been seeing movies in theaters once a week now for a while, and of course they're all scope. And this thing's flat, right? Of course, again, everything's flat technically, but it filled the whole screen a little bit more, right? It was like everything seemed a little bit bigger, which I thought was the right move, but apparently I'm wrong. Movies have to be in scope or else they're not real movies.
Well,
this is what I've heard. This is what people told me.
When it started,
just saying.
The first few scenes were a little disjointed, and I felt like there was some cutting going on, and it was, I even brought up to you the Angus McFadden character. What was he doing there? I thought that
with the surveying and stuff. I liked all that.
I thought for me, oh no, this is the George Lucas effect of somebody who hasn't directed in 20 years, who just jumped back behind a big project.
I disagree.
And it's a little shaky. But once we got past that,
I disagree.
I
think the entire
fantastic.
movie is edited incredibly.
For me, it's a little shaky until the gal shoots her dad and leaves with the baby. That's when the movie really started picking up, and I got invested in it because the brothers, the bounty hunter brothers, are out there, and then really Kevin Costner's character doesn't come into the movie till almost about an hour in, and I think that's a put off to a lot of film goers too, who thought he would be front and center the entire time.
The movie clearly works in hour increments, right? Like it has hour-long episodes, if you will, that are just kind of strung together. And I guess for a lot of people, it's hard to understand how these characters all go together. For me, I can imagine easily how you would tie all these characters together. So I'm a little confused on how anyone could be confused on how this is working. It's all has to do with Horizon. These people all exist in the same world. They're all like right around each other. I don't get it. What's confusing?
No, I mean it takes a little bit of mental gymnastics at one point to make some leaps of at the end there with some time. I think there's some cutting going on. We talked about off air about when the whore that Costner shacked up with leaves and she's with another man. There is some jumping going there. But outside of that, I found this very easy to follow.
Yeah.
I felt like where my mind is taking the story, I wonder if that's where the story is going. There is a little montage at the end of this movie that shows you what's coming next. My complaint is, and it wasn't for me, but I heard around me people murmuring, what is this? Is this a flash forward? There should have been a coming next time or in the next chapter. and then it
Yeah,
started.
because some of it was a flashback, and some of it was
flash forward of
stuff
things
that you hadn't seen. I know that was a little confusing, but it got me right. I thought that was awesome. I made me want to see the rest of it. That little thing at the end there, so I don't mind that. And for anyone wondering what that is, this fucking says chapter 1. You should be able to figure out what that is.
I'm just saying, I heard that. Obviously, I understood what it was, but I did hear some murmuring around me. And people coming out confused, and you don't want people leaving the audience confused, especially after a 3-hour movie. But
oh yeah, people didn't like this movie. I'm supposed to be honest. This is like a C movie for everyone.
Dude, the sequence when they're crawling in the foxhole is fantastic.
Bro, when the son in that same
fucking love it
scene thing with the son and the dad, oh my god! And then there's that moment where the dad just looks at him, and then they're like, "Okay, like let's do this. You're here. You're a man now. Let's do this." And then there's that moment where they look at each other towards the end of that sequence when they know, "Hey, this ain't gonna work out so well." And it's just like, oh my god, like that got me so much. The emotion in this movie and like the danger that anyone can die at any time, and they fucking do. Was like, holy cow, like this felt so real, more real than a lot of movies that I've seen, and the character development and everything. It's small, but it's there enough. Like there's enough going on in the movie that I understand, already know what the characters are doing. I get their whole point of being.
I think Luke Wilson is very good in this movie in a smaller role. I can't wait to see what his character does. I'm very intrigued at the two gentlemen who seem to be troublemakers on that stagecoach.
That whole fam,
with the guys that are peeping at the English lady. I'm curious.
You're talking about
the two brothers,
the train,
on the guys who are on the heading out west, that stagecoach people,
on the Orient Trail, basically type of a thing.
And there's two guys who seem to be some bit of problems there.
That big old huge guy. And
I'm not so much interested in the Sienna Miller, Sam Worthington storyline. That doesn't do anything for me. But there are other characters in this that I really fucking liked, and the two brothers, are magnetic in this. I know you liked the sequence, the walk and talk, essentially, with Costner and the one brother up to the last house in town. And not only is that written sequence and acted fantastic, the blocking in that is fucking great.
Yeah, this movie
one gets in front of the other.
Directed.
He's holding his gun a certain way. It's just... that's to me when I said, okay, Costner knows what he's doing again. He knows he's in full command of the screen.
He pulls his gun out and cocks it. It's not something it's something you would see in real life. It is not something you would normally see in a movie, especially today. No one would do that. They would sit there and get ready, and then they'd draw real fast and they beat him, But that's not what happens in this movie. He pulls his gun out and cocks it well before this dude's like ready to draw or do anything on him, because he knows this guy's about to try to fucking kill him, and he doesn't want to die.
Right.
It's fucking brilliant. Like, come on. I want to see real life stuff. That's why I liked all this movie. And the Sam Worthington stuff I thought was really great too, because I liked that character a lot. And he's a man in this, and he's trying to do things his way, and be a man about them, but he can't necessarily do that. And nobody agrees so much with how things are going down, I guess, especially with the Native Americans. Which, speaking of which, isn't that not a great father and son moment?
Okay, I was going to say, Trevor, you just hit on it. The themes. The sons, right? I'm proud my sons know who they are. That's got to work with the baby, even, who's now given up for adoption. That son's going to want to know who he is at some point. The two sons that go, the two Indians that go forward, and the chief glad that he knows who they are. The one son who stands with his father, he knows who they are. That to me was a big theme. Sons who know who they are. Also, the theme of luck kept coming up. When the one Native American says, I just believe I think we have bad luck. When the one chief gives the younger man this little trinket to go. When the girl gives the Union soldiers the little piece on the material to take with them, the little flowers for luck.
Gives them something to hold on to.
Right. The Irish Mickey Rourke character, Michael Rourke character, who I think is supposed to somewhat have some sort of be a lucky character as well. So I don't think there's a lot of things developing here, and it's going to take some time. But fuck, man, it's rich. We're not talking about themes in Beverly Hills Cop 4 or Bad Boys 4.
How does this pan out? Yeah, because right now, like in my mind, there's a setup where The whore could be pregnant with Kevin Costner's
Absolutely,
kid.
100%. Because
And we've
sons
already
need
done
to know
this
their
where-
fathers, right? That's the
Yeah,
thing.
but he was willing to commit to them. She didn't want to do it. They gave up that kid. That kid's gone. So what happens if she's pregnant? They're on the run. She gives birth to his son, but they're still after her, thinking she has the kid, but they're going to come after her for her kid. Is that possible?
The thing is this.
And that's Kevin Costner's drug back into it now because that's actually his kid now.
Okay, now you're getting
What am I even
you're
talking
playing
about?
three,
Right?
You're
Holy
fucking
shit!
in 40
This is
chess.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Is this real? Is that what's going to happen? Come on, make it happen.
That's way because I was thinking about the son who is now going to be raised by the Chinese immigrants, and
There's that
in the
too?
pamphlet of
Yes.
Horizon. I mean, the note to the Asian people at the end was
What's
written on
left
the
to
back
come?
of Horizon.
How many more people, more characters can we have just based on that alone? So, and those people will all wind up together, right, at Horizon.
Yeah, 100%.
All these people will.
So we're
You
talking.
can easily see how this all works.
A lot of character development. It's a very rich tapestry that's been put together. I like the fact that they're holding off on this theatrical release if it is to give people a chance to see the first film on Max or digital or whatever they're going to do now.
I hope it comes out in theaters. I really do want to see these in theaters. It was a great way to watch this, in my opinion. Even at 3 hours,
It went by quickly for
went
3
by
hours.
so fast. Like I say, this is edited so well. I mean, incredibly well for a 3-hour movie, and there's never a boring spot in it.
Compared
Yeah,
to some of these movies recently
I
that
don't
were
know.
2:45, like Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible,
Horribly
this
boring.
flows. I mean, honestly, I was never bored in this movie. My mind did not wander. I was watching and actively putting together the story and where I thought it was going and what it was trying to say. And is it Dances with Wolves level? Not yet. This isn't that entry. This is the beginning. But it's not Phantom Menace. It's not Postman, which is I actually think is underrated.
Oh no, this is a great. I think this is a really good movie, but this is a standard Western. It's just not. It's like Lonesome Dove. It really is the best way to
That's
say
a good
this. But this is, of
comparison.
course, Lonesome Dove with
Huge budgets.
I don't know, three times the budget, and it doesn't pull back. Like there's gore, there's full on everything in this. Like there's no holding back. Right? There's an amazing sex scene.
That's the worst part about it.
I hated that whole thing when that happened. It's like, gee, oh my god, like what is going on? That was like, you know what that was? That was the sex scene from what's the Nicolas Cage movie where Leaving Las Vegas? That was literally the sex scenes from Leaving Las Vegas.
Well, I thought when I'm watching it, well, there's no reason for this to be in here because it's so awkward. She must be getting pregnant from this. That's why I think you're onto something there.
That's why I thought too, and then she gave it the baby. The way that whole thing wound itself out, and she's leaving him because she feels bad for him committing to her and this kid when she got him into this whole mess, and it's not even her kid, it's not his kid. She's not his problem, but that then will bring him back into the fold because it will be his problem then, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to see where this goes, and I hope I was looking forward to seeing Chapter 2, although even for myself who really enjoyed it, I thought, wow, 2 3-hour Westerns in the same summer is going to be a bit much with my schedule.
But I would have watched the next one immediately.
I would have caught it the opening weekend too.
I without an issue. I would have watched the next one the same day. I thought it was so good. I want to know. I want to know what happens.
I'm going to rewatch this first one again to see if I'm missing any sort of.
The 4K has been pre-ordered.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Attaboy.
I got
When's the street date on that?
So it'll be. I don't
Probably
know.
a couple months.
I don't think it's a couple of months. I think it's pretty soon.
I know this. I want to say tomorrow, as we record this, they're dropping the digital, but I don't know if it's the 4K. The physical release. I know it's the digital release. Or they were speaking about
it's
the
hard to
digital release
say.
at least. I think it's the best movie I've seen this year so
Anyhow,
far, without a doubt.
I think it's my number one movie, and I don't think there's going to be. I don't see anything on the horizon that's going to beat it for me. But I don't know. I don't know about anybody else. I don't know. I can't speak, I guess.
I don't know if it
for everybody else.
has...
September 10th is
that's not bad.
Is the release date for this. This price went way up.
I don't think that it has any Oscar chances because of the fact that it was produced basically outside the studio system. And
it's Kevin Costner. They don't like him,
right.
so no, it doesn't.
So
as far as I don't know, as far as the white cast, which I think is what you're going to say, because there's a what do you call it? Diversity?
Yeah, clause
now thing in there. But there are Native Americans in this. There are African Americans in this. So this isn't like a non-diverse cast.
True.
But the main characters are, well, they're historically accurate. I don't know how to say
what's going on between even the tribes, the Apaches that were slaughtering people. I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, this is history that on both sides, it's horrific. It's human beings being horrific to one another, and human beings prospering on just and what a lot of things that we have in common on what we all wanted. So it's very, like I said, it's rich is the best way I can describe this. It came out of it feeling like I ate a good meal, and
it's great. There's a bunch of action in it, and some of the action is just like when they when the scalp hunters take down the tribe there. Oh my God, is that not horrible? But of course we saw this happen to the
town,
the settlers,
the Greenleaf
earlier,
or Greenleaf or something like that.
But it's still terrible, and the way they play with the little boy who is like wants revenge, but then sees what revenge is, and is like, ugh.
It's
I don't know. I like the whole.
I recommend it highly.
All the characters, I think it's great.
And so do you. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I don't think you'll have a chance to check it out in theaters anymore. But that's your
It'll
fault.
be streaming. You watch it streaming. It's 3 hours long. I really don't. I'd hate to say there's no reason to go see it in theaters, but I think this plays really, really well in theaters. But it is like a mini series.
I mean, even
it's like a TV mini series. That's exactly
Hateful
what it is.
Eight, which was a 3 hour long Western, struggled to find an audience in theaters. So
you know what? That had I remember seeing that in 70 millimeter. And it's a good movie, but that movie drags more than Horizon.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So hey,
I'd rather watch Horizons Chapter 1 than rewatch The Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight's great, but it is much slower than Horizon.
All right, let's pivot and talk about trailers. We got 2 trailers on tonight's show. One is going to be probably the trailer that most people have seen, Gladiator II. This is now the most viewed trailer in the history of Paramount, eclipsing Maverick, I think, by double. They were saying 200-something million views.
Yeah, people seem to like it.
My complaints with this trailer. 1, it's 3.5 minutes long. Why are trailers so fucking long now? Give me something to lust for.
I'm sure the movie's going to be 3 hours long. So
2.
A minute per hour.
Why are we doing 2 trailers we're going to talk about tonight are using Jay-Z songs? We didn't need, Wind in the Strength in the Wind or whatever in the Wild. I didn't need that. I don't know. You had Hans Zimmer's glorious music you could have pulled from. Why are we not using the Oscar-winning music from the first? I mean, I told you off air, and I'll repeat it here, that this trailer to me looks like the sequel to Gladiator, to 300. That cheap.
Yeah, this looks cheap.
Just subpar. Just a money grab. I hate to say it because I didn't think they would do that to this.
I don't feel the same way. Obviously, this is missing all the Gladiator stuff. I mean, there's gladiators in this, and they fight. But that's not why I like Gladiator. I love that story of, and this feels like, like a fan's interpretation of that, like a continuation of like someone who, and to be fair, I mean, it has real writers on it. It's obviously, Ridley Scott. It has real actors, I guess. I'm kind of tired of some of these actors, to be honest with you, but, I mean, Denzel seems out of place, to say the least, in this movie, and not because he's black, but just because he looks modern.
Well, he's done Shakespeare. He was nominated, I think, for Macbeth a couple of years ago, so he can do. Of course he can,
but he's not doing that in this. It doesn't feel that way. If he feels like modern Denzel, it feels like it feels like I'm watching Denzel, not a character. I guess it would be the way I would say, but. I don't know. This, like I said, this is a rather boring trailer, in my opinion. I was not excited about this. I thought this is a story I don't know if I care about, really. I mean, this is a story I could come up with, in 5 minutes. This doesn't sound that great.
It came off as fan fiction to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't appear to be all that deep, or like where's the emotional moments from the original Gladiator movie, and how does this end?
With more Gladiator movies.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott doesn't make a lot of sequels, but when he is chosen to do so, they usually turn out okay.
Look,
but
do they? Because look, I liked Prometheus, but let's be honest about it, and let's be honest about some of the other stuff. I don't know. He's hit or miss.
Napoleon was a big miss for me.
Napoleon sucked, which is what I'm fearful for this, because it looks similar, but I don't know. At least this has possibly more action built into it. I don't know. But I mean, like, there are some things, like I would rather watch Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, than this,
for sure.
Which is a surprisingly great movie.
It actually makes sense. Characters' motivations make sense in that version.
Oh yeah. It's much longer, but it is still much better. But this just doesn't excite me at all. And to be fair, that movie had, so maybe there's a better cut in this. Maybe there is. Maybe the trailer's just bad.
Possible, because the trailer for Napoleon was pretty good, and that movie turned out to be shit. Well, let's talk about next, Flight Risk. This is Mel Gibson directing Mark Wahlberg in a Lionsgate film, a little action thriller. Interesting to me that they don't actually mention Mel Gibson by name here. They say the director of Braveheart, Hacksaw Ridge, and all these other movies, Apocalypto.
No, you don't want to say
And another trailer where I feel I want to see this. It does.
The man that shall not be named.
And I don't like that it has another fucking classic song done a cappella that is too on the nose.
Yeah, I don't like the way this is cut to that song either. I'm tired of that stuff.
Shit. Also, too much story is being divulged here.
This is all right. I'm watching the whole fucking movie. Actually, I'm watching this trailer and I'm starting to think, oh my God, how is this going to be a whole fucking movie? They should have cut this like it was a fucking 90s movie. I mean, the trailer anyways, and that would have been perfect. It would have been fucking brilliant as far as this, because you got Mark Wahlberg playing a bad guy with a bald cap.
I love it.
Which is ridiculous. Michelle Dockery, who I think is fantastic, and Topher Grace. So yeah, the casting's great. It looks like an interesting little thriller. A lot of it, is a closed-in thriller, something that takes place all in this tiny little plane. But it makes you worried. Do they have enough to do something in that? I don't know, but they do kind of give it away. Like a jet shows up, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and also do I need to know that Mark Wahlberg is a bad guy already?
Yeah, they could have held something on there. Look at the trailer for Turbulence, and it's cut way better than this trailer, just for reference point of a
yeah, I don't like the way they reveal things in this. Like, I mean, I guess they would have to do that in the trailer to some degree, but at least, like the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, right?
Way too much is given away in that as well.
I disagree. Well, the
brand new trailer I saw.
But the original trailer, I disagree. I think that's a great cut trailer, because you don't actually know. You get a hint, you get an idea, well enough. But yeah, the new trailer smashes any intrigue or thought that I had. Maybe that movie might be this or that, or maybe this will happen. And then the new trailer,
it's very on the nose.
And I watched it and I was like, oh, maybe there's a hidden twist. I don't know.
For sure there is, but it's this. So far, that one actually, the newer trailer got me disinterested in the movie as opposed to more.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We started becoming a little bit, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the cut trailer's a little more. I don't know. Leave some stuff. Make it intriguing. Don't make it cool. Make it intriguing.
Yeah, I want to see this though. I will see this because I'm a Wahlberg fan and a Mel Gibson fan. So I want to see how.
And a Topher Grace fan.
Always, I don't miss a movie he does.
Spider-Man 3 is the best Spider-Man.
Let's move on and talk about the last movie on tonight's show, Red One, the Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans movie about an action film centering around Christmas. Surprisingly going to theaters. I thought this was going to be a streamer, but it's not. Another movie that uses a Jay-Z song in the trailer.
Are you sure this is going to theaters?
It says exclusively in theaters November 15th at the end there.
I didn't even read that.
As I'm watching this...
No, it's an Amazon movie.
It looks better than I thought it was going to be because I didn't really have an idea. Maybe it's a Mom and Dad Saves the World level something. But is Ryan Reynolds too busy for this movie? Because Chris Evans
that's right.
is sorely just doing a Ryan Reynolds impersonation.
I know. Look, this looks like a fine family, big event movie. I think it'll be fine on the big screen. Actually, this would be one of the movies you would wonder, why wouldn't this be on the big screen? So I'm glad they're releasing it on the big screen because it makes sense. But guys, it's just some random crap,
It reminds me of the Kurt Russell one. What was that? The Christmas Connection or something like that, or Chronicles of Christmas or some shit like that. And I think they made 2 of them. And mixed with, the Christmas genre is huge now with movies, but possibly this could be a blast. I don't know. I'm going to give it a watch just because it's a little bit
it's
bigger.
Probably okay no matter what. Hey, they had more faith in this than what was the other, the Jake Gyllenhaal one?
Oh, Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. They had more faith in this than Roadhouse.
That says so. And they're making a sequel to Roadhouse too. So interesting.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
Gyllenhaal just jumped right on board. Apparently, all wounds are mended. But that could be Lehman too. If you watch any behind the scenes on his movies, he's out of his fucking head. So
maybe Roadhouse 2 will actually be good.
Or rewatchable.
Actually, I know Roadhouse 2 is terrible, but the new one.
Roadhouse Last Call is terrible. Well, that's going to wrap up episode 400. We've done 400 of these guys. It's been a pleasure doing these with you, my man. I hope we can do 400 more of these. And do you have any final thoughts for this momentous occasion?
I'm glad we're not doing talk show anymore.
I know, right? Live call-ins and trying to shoot people in.
Yeah, talk show. It's like embedded in my brain. It's burned into my fucking
Funny, I heard the same
ears.
thing, and I thought the same thing as well. And as a treat for you guys on our outro here, we are going to play all the bumpers that we've had over the years. But thanks again for joining us. It's been a fun ride, and we're going to give you hundreds more in the future. Speaking for Trevor Anderson, I am Jason Rugard, and we are the Movie Mavericks.